Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of your favorite podcast or your mom's favorite podcast, everyone's favorite podcast, the Mile High Sports Symposium. I, Dr. Nicholas Manning, find me on the Twitter at dr_nmanning, or you can find the podcast at DocNJT on Twitter and or Instagram. I'm riding solo today. The partner in crime came down with the sickness, and not in like a good way, that is going around the fam. So I thought I'd give it a go. I have no idea how this is going to go today, but in the end, we're fixing to find out. We are fixing to find out. A lot going on in the NFL as of late. College football starting up this weekend, or has started last weekend, as evidenced by my Florida State Seminoles pooping the bed. And but we all know what that means. We are now in the season of football, and more football. Yesterday, Broncos put out their 53-man final roster, and essentially that's the final roster for the season starting. We all know that there's going to be some shifts and some movements throughout. A couple of surprise move-ons, a couple of surprise keeps. You know, where does that leave the Broncos moving into the 2024 season? So we're going to talk about that here in the minute. I wish we had some like really awesome Rockies talk to provide you right now. Blue give up 5 runs and the win last night in the 9th inning before even recording their first out. So we're not going to go there. We could talk about the Nuggets. Russell Westbrook coming along and already gets drama thrown his way without there being much reason for. Christian Brown, number 0, has been, and Russ obviously has worked his way through a Hall of Fame career, most time wearing number 0. Christian Brown, the starter. There was some conversation or rumors that Russ had went around and tried to get that number, and he quickly cleared that up yesterday on Instagram. Said, you know, I didn't even reach out. We're good. We're ready to rock the season. Love Brody. So the outside scrutiny for the Nuggets and the Russell Westbrook era has already began. However, I do feel like it's a marriage that can work. No teammate has ever came out and said, I don't like playing with Russell Westbrook. So we're going to kind of leave that where it is there. We could talk about Avalanche, but literally no news, so we're not. So really, all Broncos conversation in this. Feel free if you got questions, throw them in the comments. I will try and catch as many as possible. But want to talk about the Broncos 53-man roster, who they kept. What do we think about that? And is this really the best outfit that the Broncos could put on the field for 2024? I think first and foremost, let's talk QBs. So we got ourselves a legitimate, apparently, quarterback competition we had between Zach Wilson, number 2 overall draft pick in 2021 by the New York Jets, 4th-round draft pick Jarrett Stidham, I believe in 2019. Probably something like that. Anyway, and then 1st-round pick this season, Bo Nix. So all of the quarterbacks had been told throughout the preseason up to now that they were in a quarterback competition. Apparently, whatever they did in the building, it resonated. Right. So last week, the team was announced before the preseason game against the Cardinals that Bo Nix is the starter. It's going to be a starter going in the season. It was a tough battle between, but that's who gives the Broncos the best chance to win, opening up on September 9th or something. So with that being said, apparently that really was shocking to Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham, partially to his credit, went on and on about being a starting quarterback in this league. I know I'm a starting quarterback. I just needed the opportunity to do so. And to be honest with you, I want my guys to think that. I think all of us would want, you want players that want to be great, and you want players that that want to win, right? So you need a little bit of ego in sports in general to really push yourself to be able to compete at such a high level. If you are passive and you're letting people take snaps, take reps without really fighting for that, you'll be out of work. Be out of work pretty quick. Let's be honest about that. So I don't mind that. The interesting part was, is he the backup now? Do you carry Jarrett Stidham, a guy that will have a hefty $5 million cap hit, actually $5 million payday, potentially $7 million cap hit, potentially. If he's your number 3, I think my outside looking in would be absolutely not. You don't want to keeping a third string quarterback making more money than your first 2. I don't care what the circumstances are with Russ, et cetera, all that good stuff. Not a good way to do business, and a waste of resources. That guy, barring catastrophic things, will never see the field. So you're paying him that much to be a coach on the field. When you have Davis Webb, who essentially is Jarrett Stidham in like 3 years. So it was interesting to see that, especially after Zach Wilson's really strong performance in the preseason finale. But it absolutely looks like it's going to be Bo Nix. It's going to be Jarrett Stidham, and it's going to be Zach Wilson, and in that order. And I think that's important for, for us to really look at and how that might, prepare the Broncos for 2024. Pull up their Instagram stuff one, just because the graphics pretty dope. So you got Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson. I would have been very fine in them keeping 2. I think their plan right now, they really do like Zach Wilson. He's a guy that they didn't want to lose, exposed to waivers. Probably is going to give you the best look too for opposing quarterbacks on your scout team. When you're going up against Kansas City and being able to run and maneuver out of the pocket with athleticism, Zach Wilson is a guy that can replicate some of those behaviors, some of that mobility for sure, and some of the chaotic nature that Patrick Mahomes can cause. So it kind of makes sense from all of those factors. Again, not a very expensive group in just this one because of the draft pick nature and acquisition process for all 3. And you still got to account for Russ Wilson being a big a bruise to the eye for the Denver Broncos. Super interesting for all of us to discuss here, though. Running backs. So we got news early Tuesday or late Monday that they were going to move on. The Broncos being they are moving on from Samaje Perine, which I think all of us knew once Audric Estime had been drafted, it was going to be Samaje or Javonte. And maybe that wavered a little bit, or we thought that it might. Samaje got a ton of work in 2 minutes and red zone work with the ones up to the Arizona game. So, very much involved in some extremely important offensive functioning and didn't play in week 3 of the preseason. So you kind of could make the conclusion, hey, they're protecting their asset. He's a guy that is a known commodity, and you know what? It's a guy that they're keeping. However, with the most expensive cap hit of over $3 million, he was released after they couldn't find a trading partner. The interesting part, let me know if your thoughts, my friends, on Blake Watson. Blake Watson being a Denver Bronco. It goes like this. Javonte is your 1. Jaleel is your 3rd down and change of pace. Audric Estime is your thunder to thunder with Javonte. And then Blake Watson really kind of brings the allure of the unknown. So I very much am a Blake Watson guy. I think if you followed us at all, you have heard me say often about my affinity for, I wanted them to draft Blake Watson. So the fact that he is on the Denver Broncos from jump, I think is a really phenomenal thing. Because you get a guy that has played receiver. So at Memphis, started as a wide receiver. So really offers a wider array of the the route tree. Alvin Kamara, Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles, etc. Guys that have done those things for Sean Payton, but also I think is a better typical running back than he gets credit for. He's a guy that also profiles pretty well or has done pretty well in pass pro, and obviously being able to utilize routes in a varying array of positions. So he led the team in rushing last year with Memphis after being at Old Dominion before that. Had over 1,100 yards and 14 rushing touchdowns, so pretty good. Not gonna lie. And then also had 50 catches, I believe, or near there, which is one of the rare times where running backs are asked to catch that in college. It's not really a skill that is utilized often, or the position, mind you, is kind of taken advantage of for that very much, if ever. So really like that group. I don't think Blake Watson earned that spot yet. I think that very much is a vision for, compared to last year, Jaleel had to earn that spot. I mean, that was not given to him. It wasn't a guy that I think they were worried about making it through waivers or any of those factors. So this is your running back room. Again, Javonte Williams being the oldest at 25. So going young, I think we're finding a theme as you look at the first two position groups. This position group, wide receiver position group, really, I think, shocked us all. And rightfully so. So Timmy Patrick, who has been a phenomenal Bronco, looked really, really good against the Green Bay Packers, has looked spry in camp. The team had notified him that they were going to move on also. So my estimation is Devon Vele, who 7th round pick, who essentially, to be honest with you, has looked like Tim Patrick late or Tim Patrick, all the way from the Utah roots, wearing number 81, same body type, same skill set, except Vele plays special teams. Tim Patrick is at a time in his career where that no longer is the best use of his capabilities. So you give the tie to the young guy, which again, stop me if you've heard this before, and injury history. Sadly, Tim Patrick has gotten hurt, season-ending injuries before the season has started twice. And do you want to let a guy go or expose someone like an early draft or a draft pick, Devon Vele or Troy Franklin, for a guy who has shown, or at least has experienced, injuries at a high rate the last couple of years? Marvin Mims Jr., really now it's Sutton, Mims, and Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds looked really good in camp. Hasn't really shined as much in the preseason games, but they are preseason games, so we'll chalk that up to maybe Sean Payton not wanting to show his cards too much. Court looks like Court, and really excited for what he can do this season. I'm hopeful that his connection with Bo is so good that they rework his deal, give him a little extension, he stays put, but could really be the last time number 14 suits up for the Denver Broncos. So they only kept 5. Most of our conversations across the landscape here in Broncos country were, do they keep 5, 6? Do they keep 7? Like, so much gluttony of talent. Brandon Johnson, Jalen Virgil, all that good stuff. Michael Bandy really being the only true slot guy, and one of the few guys that showed a good knack for returning punts. So didn't matter. It didn't matter. Denver Broncos decided to move on and only keep 5. Sean Payton, remember last year when they broke camp, only kept 4 receivers. That isn't how they finished. So I would assume as names continue to come in for the practice squad, there will be quite a few wide receivers in that group. Another interesting group for us to look at now is offensive linemen. The Broncos kept 9. Pretty heavy. Most teams keep 8. But I think if there were a group to oversaturate, especially if you're trying to develop young potential players, it's the offensive line. You can never have enough depth up front. We've seen that happen in Broncos country where there's guys getting starter snaps because of injury that should not have been in that spot. So the Denver Broncos starting 5 as of today. Luke Wattenberg at center. You have Powers and Meinertz at the guards. And you have Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey at your tackle spots. Interesting keep. So Matt Pert, who was a 3rd or 4th round pick, I believe, by the Giants a few years back, really physically gifted, can play inside and outside. I don't think, maybe the coaching has been there to maximize his physical skill set, or maybe that just won't be a match in terms of his athletic potential and what he's able to do as a player. But someone that's young still and will be the swing tackle, I have no doubt. Alex Palshevsky, who is my guy, again, went to Illinois, had gotten hurt early last year, or I think would have been a strong contributor for the Denver Broncos. You're also keeping Frank Crum. So I'm talking about the tackles right now, who has looked really bad most of camp, most of the games. But the athletic opportunities, the athletic ceiling for him is so high. This team didn't want to risk exposing him to waivers because most teams need more depth on the offensive line, and he likely would have been a guy that you wouldn't have got back. In my estimation, Palshevsky, Pert, and Crum are, who can get better faster to potentially challenge and become the Denver Broncos right tackle at minimum. So I like that. Alex Forsyth, a draft pick by Sean Payton. So I think he's going to keep his guy, especially at the center guard backup position. So 9 in all. I am a little shocked that they kept all 3 of those tackles, but considering they're all under the age of 28, you're really kind of hoping that you can still develop a cheap option for tackle as this team looks to create a new competitive window. Not sure what you all think about the Denver Broncos and keeping all 9. Is that something that you would have done? It's not something you would have done. Let me know. I'm not sure that that's where I would have. I think I would have ran with 8. I wasn't overly impressed by Pert or with Crum. I probably would have taken the chance that you could get one through to waivers. But I also understand, and I'm more than okay with keeping guys that you feel like you can develop. We have not had that kind of confidence up front in some time in Denver, and I mean in some time. And right now, I really love the coaching staff that Sean Payton has put together. With that being said, I think that they can develop one of those guys to have a shot and challenge for the right tackle position as early as next year, maybe the year after. But either way, it's nice to feel like you're growing, some cheap, controllable assets. And I mean that just strictly in football terms. Frank and Matt and Alex. Tight end room, which last year by production was the worst in the NFL and not even close. It was rough. A lot of that was Russ and his inability to be able to throw in between the hashes. Bo Nix shouldn't be the problem. So really it's going to be, what can we get out of this group? So the Broncos will start most often the traditional sets. Adam Troutman, who is the best at offering the Broncos a receiving and or blocking threat at the same time. But to be honest, not the best on the team at both. Maybe blocking. Maybe I'd give that to him over Atkins. But I think Nate Atkins, who was kept, who essentially usurped Michael Burton, who was a Pro Bowl alternate at fullback. Also because there's not a lot of fullbacks in the NFL. So you get a guy that gives you some positional flexibility in Atkins and is probably a much better pass catcher than what Burton offers you in that regard. What I also really appreciate is Dulcich. I think what he's been able to do in staying on the field and healthy for the most part so far has provided, I think, more hope for this group. Lucas Kroll obviously has been a camp revelation. We'll see as it gets into the regular season how the snaps shake out. I wouldn't be shocked if this is a group, maybe if an older vet gets released, that they take a look at. I think we're bringing someone. I know that kept Yasmin on the practice squad so far. But really, this is a group that that track record of success is minimal. And I don't know that it has a high ceiling in the sense of, Lucas Kroll, Greg Dulcich, because of his limitations blocking. Really, he's going to be a slot or a joker strictly in the, in a skill player requisite. So not a lot of guys that really can threaten you from the wide position in line. But nonetheless, I have more faith in what we're going to be able to provide here for the Denver Broncos. And how they might get out of that. Looks like my man Tim Wentz. Tim, appreciate you. I didn't get to see that yet, so I am gonna be super excited if one, I trust you, because if you were to set me up there, Timmy, we would be not great. I'm just gonna be honest. Parham is a wonderful option, so super excited that is the news. So with that, I think continuing the conversation about just really rebuilding that tight end room, having guys that can do different stuff is what Sean Payton has always done, whether it's been with Jeremy Shockey, whether it's been with Jimmy Graham, even Kobe Fleener, right, was brought in from Indianapolis down to New Orleans and was much more of your Y, your flex Y or your split. And so excited about that and what that can offer. My concern for sure right now, again, is ability to be able to be multiple and threatening at the same time with guys like that. So you're correct. Nice job. Thanks for being on top of it, Tim. I appreciate you. Donald Parham is a red zone nightmare. 6'7". I think he's had 11 touchdowns over the last 3 years. Gargantuan person. So I love that get for the practice squad. That'll be a guy that gets called up quite a bit. And then I bet, if Lucas Kroll isn't, really making things happen, he's a guy that goes and sits back on the practice squad probably. Michael Burton was kept onto the practice squad. So was Bandy, Sills, and Humphrey. So you really like the depth there. They did this with Little Jordan last year. So guys that will get brought up. I assume they have one more spot on their practice squad to be determined after keeping some other players. But let's go back to the offense. I think, Tim, you had discussed how nice is it going to be? How nice will the offense look without a QB that has to pump 3 times like McRingleberry on each throw? One, fantastic drop. I love some Keenan Peele, and that, again, is one of the best skits ever. Having a quarterback with this offense, right? So if we go back and we look at the skill position players, I would argue probably to say that Blake Watson and Marvin Mims are your most dynamic skill zone options in theory, potential. So not really never mind. I'll put Greg Dulcich in there. Not really guys that we're probably all rushing to go stash on our fantasy football rosters. So having a quarterback who is going to deliver the ball on time is really going to make this offense go. So having a quarterback, all jokes aside, who is able and willing to play within the offense, to do what's asked, keep the team ahead of the sticks. Everyone was talking about what's this team going to do when it's, they're getting more complex looks. And yeah, that usually happens on third down. And if you don't get in a lot of third downs because your offense is able to pick up first downs in rhythm more often, it might not be as big of a concern as we get. So just something for us to keep in mind. Overall, that's the Broncos offense. I feel pretty good about where they're at. Don't know how fun or how they'll look, but I bet Sean Payton's going to be in the bag. Wondering what everyone thinks too. I know Tim asked about or has brought up what McLaughlin is going to look like. He is someone that I did not mention. Really, that Darren Sproles role. I also wonder if I'm trying to put people into positions or roles that Sean Payton has shown to use in the past. But also that was with the quarterback in Drew Brees, who was sneaky athletic. I think we all know what that means. Bo Nix is not that. Bo Nix is a dynamic athlete. at the quarterback position. And so maybe maximizing more of what Bo can do physically will minimize the needs of some of those roles. Or nope, that's the way that we're thinking about it and how they would utilize someone like McLaughlin or Watson in Reggie Bush role, that kind of speed back to Lightning guy that can get the ball in space. But how are they going to do that more effectively this season? Last season, it was a huge tell when McLaughlin was on the field that he's probably going to get the ball and probably getting the ball outside or on a screen or a swing. And so he's shown more of a commitment to run the ball inside during camp and his minimal touches in the preseason, which you got to put on tape so they threaten it so you can have more success outside. But overall, I think this offense may not be, might not be overly flashy, but I think we'll look smooth. And, if you're picking up first downs, and even if you're not scoring on all of your drives, more likely you're going to add points because you're playing a better field position game, and you're able to have shots at field goals that you wouldn't have had because of, struggles on first and second down as the Broncos had last year. So let's move on a little bit. One specialist, Riley Dixon, the only one in competition, and by far was a better punter. Defensive line, this one, I think it was a little bit more of a surprise with a couple moves, a little bit. That said, I think we all would raise our hand. If I asked you, do you think that the Broncos defensive line, last year that was that struggled? Does this offensive or defensive line group, do we feel better about? I emphatically would say yes. I think John Franklin Myers has a chance to be a very impactful player. I don't know, I'd say great, but really good. Opposite of Zach Allen, who in my estimation is not great yet, but is really good. Now you have one of each on each side. They can't really just double team Zach all the time like they did last year. Hopefully this provides to DJ Jones an opportunity to really make some plays. Because last year was, I think, a bigger concern than the year before. Year before of his 3-year deal, I thought DJ played a really good season. He was tough, stopped the run, even had some good pocket pressure. But last year, it just seemed like it wasn't there. And maybe it was the culture of the team, the ebb and flow, the lack of help, all those kind of things. What I do think is super interesting is the depth. When we looked at the depth chart before, our view was a little bit different about how that defensive line was going to shake out. We knew it was going to be a battle, and Iomi Iwazurike being able to come back from a suspension and earn a job really with like 10 days of camp is pretty outstanding. I mean, the fact that he's able to do it. The biggest shock to me isn't how good Malcolm Roach looked, which that guy looks all advertised. If he's out, they're not running wherever he's at. So big shout out to Malcolm for being that dude. But Jordan Jackson, he was a guy that was a really hard cut last year. It was kind of between him and Elijah Garcia, who in all estimations looks like will not play in Denver either on the practice squad or the Broncos after making it last year. Jordan Jackson physically looks the part. If you look at him, he is an NFL built player, size, length, and throughout camp as well as the preseason splashed. And they really, finding a guy that can create consistent interior pressure in today's NFL can be more impactful than anyone that can push the edge. If you make quarterbacks uncomfortable stepping up, I think you really got a shot here at having a defensive front. And not only that can stop the run, DJ is good at stopping the run. Zach Allen was good at stopping the run. Malcolm Roach, obviously, that's why he got this offer. But Iwazurike is also 3+ with arms like tree vines. So watching Matt Henningsen go, who was a good player for the Broncos last year, but again, raising the floor. So, Henningsen got a lot of snaps last year. I don't know that is good if that is a good sign for your depth. They brought back Jordan Miller onto the defensive line for the practice squad, but that's been about it. Feel better about this group. I don't know if I see a star in it, but should have a lot more pressure. And to be honest, in this division, in this league and that schedule, they're going to need it. So I give this a good look. I was shocked that Wazirike, they didn't, just try and wait to reinstate him or show their cards until the end of the preseason and maybe just sneak him onto the practice squad. So they likely had either intel or they see him being an upgrade over some of the guys that gave them some pretty good snaps last year. Inside linebacker, to some shock for sure, Jonas Griffith was released. I think it was a guy not only we're all rooting for, good human, been through some muck, got hurt in the same practice, if I recall, as Tim Patrick last year, or back-to-back days. You had really kind of had it start to come together, and was hopeful to be able to fight for that spot this year. With Cody Barton, it looked like was the better option in camp. Cody Barton played better than Jonas, in my opinion, for the totality of camp. They probably went to him with the option of, do you want to run some special teams, or do you want a chance to go start somewhere? And I have no doubt that they gave Jonas an opportunity to go see if there was a better circumstances out there. There is one spot remaining. Jonas Griffith could absolutely come back and take that last practice squad spot. Could be someone too that they signed after the first of the year, so his salary isn't guaranteed as a player with the injury history. So I think the shock, or maybe the most interesting to note was Levante Bailey making it. So inside linebacker, unrestricted free agent, hasn't looked, in my opinion, tremendous through camp, but steadily improved each week. And every time that I saw him, quicker to the ball, really good in coverage. And then, I don't know if this was a sign or sealed it for him. Was his pick 6 in Sunday's game against the Cardinals, running it back 96 yards, and looked like an athlete. Wasn't like a big linebacker, stumbling all the way down. And you saw the elation of the Broncos teammates running down there. So obviously a guy that's probably liked within the locker room will do some dirty work on special teams. And you got a guy maybe that really has some of that coverage upside if he can continue to get bigger, stronger in the weight room and more stout against the run. So I would assume that one probably is we're saving you on the roster because we think we can develop you moving forward, probably hopefully as a potential starter as this team looks to. My hope is to really elevate that room since Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall were there. Hasn't really been, in my opinion, last year with Josie, maybe we could say was a strength of this team with Alex Singleton, but not very dynamic. Josie is great, but athletically offers you minimal. And in this division now with Brock Bowers, with Michael Mayer, with Travis Kelce, there are guys that can do some pretty dope stuff. And I think that's something to note. Justin Chernod again making it. I'm super impressed by his continued progress as a linebacker. I thought he looked much better in in training camp than he had last year or the year before, to be honest. I think he has kind of settled into being someone that's really good at their job, really good special teams player, has shown some chops in coverage, has struggled really to assert himself in the run game. He looked better. And I don't know if that is going to make a play for him getting snaps or more snaps throughout the season. But he was a guy that this franchise, including myself, had really high hopes for early, and they didn't come to fruition. And instead of folding and having an opportunity to go sign somewhere else and, refresh, new start, go see what I can do, he has really kind of nose to the grindstone. and is here again this season, making the team for the 6th year, I believe. 5th year, sorry. But much impressed, and you got to give some love to a guy that's persevered quite a bit like he has. I absolutely do think that Bailey gives some Trevathan vibes. Not lying. I think if you trip and fall and land on Danny Trevathan, I think that would be stellar. Moving on from the inside linebackers, let's go to your edge players. So some guys that they moved off of, which I'm sorry, Matt Henningsen is on the practice squad. My bad, dogs. My bad. DeAndre Tillman, who I think has looked pretty good at outside linebacker. Doesn't look like they've kept much depth outside of him. So really interesting that that kind of is the investment currently at this moment in time. So they obviously see something with who they got, and they wanted to hedge their bets with some guys in some other positions. So you got Jonathan Cooper, Nick Benito, Baron Browning, and Jonah Ellis, who, again, the guy that I was super excited about. I'm going to pat myself on the back. I'm going to break my arm today. Just nice job, Nick. Has looked NFL ready. There was concerns about his ability to all this stuff. One, I haven't seen him get pushed at the point of attack very much throughout training camp. But two, the NFL readiness to come in and contribute, has an array of pass moves for a very young player, which is interesting to say about someone that played at Utah. So anyway, but has an array of passing. Plus, watching him in coverage, he looks natural. So you feel really good that he's your fourth. He's probably going to get the least amount of snaps to start as the other three, which is fair. But I bet by the end of the season, my hot take is he is your snap count leader, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's near the top on the team in sacks. He's really that good. The hard thing again right now is I think Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning are fighting for one contract, or Jonah Ellis shows out early, he becomes a starter. Maybe they both aren't back. I think that would be super interesting and something to follow. Fun storyline or not fun, I don't know. That I give JT all the time as a Buckeyes fan that he is. Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning were teammates at Ohio State. Came in the same draft class, I believe, and roomed early on. So spending the last 8+ years together as teammates, only to get to a place where essentially if they both play well, they both will get paid, but only one probably here. And I love Jonathan Cooper. I think he is a nice guy in, he gives Alex Highsmith vibes, a guy that's really strong number 2, but will never be a number 1. And I think this team really needs to find a number 1. And I think his ceiling isn't that. That said, the guy works like an absolute animal. And I mean that in all, with all the affection I can get. So if anyone were to outwork that word potential, it will be Cooper for sure. I think that's a big season for Nick Benito, who was squarely in the second team, and as maybe one of the most physically gifted out of the group or on defense in general. It's something that you really want to see be a guy that is an impactful starter. So only keeping 4 here, which oftentimes is traditional, but somewhere where because of the cost of that position is one that you keep an extra guy or two around. They moved on from Thomas Incoom, who was a guy that I really liked, but didn't feel like he was a guy that was going to get snaps. And to be honest, to get him developed, he's got to play. He's not going to play ahead of any of those guys. So essentially, you're kind of wasting the development time of him to keep him around. So one, do right by him. Nice job. Release him, give him a chance to go get picked up, play elsewhere. But 2, pretty sound addition. You want to bring guys that maybe on the practice squad that either have more like physical untapped potential, or guys that could come in and contribute today. I think Thomas Incoom wasn't ready to contribute, give you what you could expect, even just like low floor starter level play. But a guy that I think could be impactful somewhere if he's getting a chance to earn some snaps. Levi Wallace in his 6 days of practice makes the Denver Broncos, as does Chris Abrams-Drain and Tremont Smith. And then you're starting outside and corner or nickel corner, Jaquan McMillian, whatever my man Levy says all the time. And then Pat Surtain II, obviously PS2 All-Pro candidate and for real lockdown corner. And Riley Moss, a group that I feel like has depth or options outside of McMillan and Surtain. Guys like, Levi Wallace is actually a pretty good player. You know what to expect. So I would say high floor, low ceiling when it comes to Wallace. But you don't really know yet what Riley Moss can do. Minimal snap count. Had gotten toasted a few times in the preseason. That didn't amount to much because there wasn't completions on the play. And if you're in really good coverage, you force the quarterback to probably try and be too fine with a throw. So on both of those, he was in position-ish, in trail position, and the quarterback had to have a really good throw. That said, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert are making those throws. So got to see a little bit better showing from Riley Moss, but it's a guy that you're going to take your lumps with as he is young, and we've seen the trend. Chris Abrams-Drain has been – I really liked that pick. I think he is a guy that will continue to push for snaps, and he's always around the ball. He has a willingness to tackle. How he'll hold up with a wiry frame, we'll see. I mean, that's a part that I think we don't know yet. Tremont Smith, phenomenal special teamer. Again, they're not paying that position a lot of money. Patrick Surtain isn't a guy that or hasn't got his re-up yet, so still on a rookie deal. Levi Wallace signed a modest deal. The other guys are mid-round draft picks, and McMillan was an undrafted free agent. So not a lot of money in that room, partly because of you're wasting $50 million cap hit on your quarterback that isn't playing anymore. So you need guys that can come in and contribute meaningful snaps if called upon, but mostly to really ensure that the special teams unit has some depth and keeps you in games. Safety room, I think this one was interesting. Devon Key, Kendra Smith, and JL Skinner kind of bringing up the backups, as well as PJ Locke, who got brought back in the offseason with Brandon Jones, who we have yet to really see. Brandon Jones physically is a much more fluid and faster player than anyone the Broncos have had at that position in a while. Really good blitzer, but hasn't been on the field. That said, Devon Key had looked really, really good. You noticed 26 anytime that they were on the field was a guy that really was making some plays, as was Smith. Interceptions in the first 2 games of the preseason, so showing that he has a knack for finding the ball. Obviously, those 2 guys will help contribute on special teams. And JL Skinner, they felt last year that they got a 2nd or 3rd round pick late in the 6th round because of injury concerns and minimal ones. It was a upper body injury during a workout, so no significant tears or leg injuries, that kind of stuff, back stuff. So things that you feel probably pretty good. He's not gonna be out there bench pressing people anyway. But really like what they got in that room. Again, theme, young. So moving on from Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, and even Caden Stearns, who is a vet and had been on this team and showed really good skill set also. PJ is the oldest, and that's I think something to be said. So again, really young. This team now checks in as the 10th youngest team in football. Last year, they were the 24th. So additions like that, you'll see it. I'm really happy about them giving a shot to some guys that they want to build. I think it also indicates, again, that they're building this team for next season. Maybe this year goes well, but next season is it. Who's our core? Let's move on. A la what the plan was in Houston. Talk about, maybe Bo Nix can be this year's CJ Stroud. I don't think so. I think CJ Stroud is a much better passer and has shown it. But Bo is a better athlete. So we'll kind of see how that goes out. But really, Houston's plan, smart, savvy vet signings, not anyone breaking the bank, but kind of a good core to help the young draft picks as they have tried to accelerate that process. And they tripped and fell, landed at 10-7 because they came together, and CJ Stroud just light went on. Same could be said maybe with the Broncos, some timely, smart acquisitions, being smart with your money, really young players, and then your quarterback gets it at some point. So I think that's the hope. That's what this team is saying. So with that though, that's your Denver Broncos for the 2024 season opener. Let's be for sure clear. One, let's go back to some of the questions and topics. As a personal fan of Mike Purcell, I think he's a guy that would make sense. You don't ever have enough good players on the defensive line front. But I also would be honest. I mean, with Mike and what options there were, how much they were going to be able to utilize him, and is that something he wants to do? Mike Purcell is a very strong player in the run game, has shown the capability to push the pocket, but has been in the league for a long time. And in my estimation, to be quite honest, deserves a real opportunity at winning something this year. And I know he was in New England. They made a lot of cuts based on a reload, not because of skill. Bradley Zappi is probably a good option at being a quarterback for most teams. 4-4 as a starter for the Patriots, who have not had offensive talent for a long time. So them moving on from players doesn't necessarily mean that they're not good. It means they're going full in with the rebuild. And I think Mike will find a team fairly shortly. Hopefully, it's maybe he comes back as a practice squad candidate, and gets bumped up as the season goes on, or he goes to a winner. Mike deserves to have some meaningful games down the stretch as a Colorado guy and a fan of the show, hopefully. For sure. So good luck, Mike. It makes sense why they wouldn't bring him back, simply because I think the ageism is at play here for sure. From Alex. So really appreciate you dropping in the Thomas Incoom for you was a surprise cut. Talked about the article about his affinity for football and being able to have legal violence. Yes. Knowing, I'm a don't hit your kids kind of dad, like all that stuff. And when you get a chance to, hit people for fun, there is a proponent, especially if you're built like that, that makes this game enjoyable. I really like Incoom. He just didn't flash enough. And when you're a back end roster guy and you're trying to make the team, you have to have something different. And right now he did not. And so I really, really hope he gets a chance to go get those snaps. Kind of sharing the Broncos practice squad. I will share it via the Broncos Wire. My man John Heath put this one together. So we'll utilize this just to look at some of the moves as of their last update. So you got Tyler Beatty, don't call me Batty. I'm super excited that he's back. If you've watched him play, looked the most natural, looked the fastest, and looked really competent running in between the tackles. So a guy that I have no doubt will probably play this year, just understanding how the position goes. And so excited about that. So yes, Tim, as you had asked me individually, I'm super pumped that he is around. I'd have been a little sad if they moved on from some team speed. This was an old and slow team over the previous 2 years. Really bringing in guys that can get there faster, especially if you feel really good about your coaching and putting them in good positions. That speed will only amplify. So I think Tyler Beatty coming back was super important. Little Jordan Humphrey, it's a Sean guy. I think really has Sean to thank for his career. And again, I bet he'll be playing meaningful snaps for this team by mid to late season. A good special teamer, fantastic blocker at the receiver position, and showed some really good plays last year. We saw that against the Chargers and so forth. Michael Bandy, again, your traditional slot receiver, has an array of moves from inside and has kind of that smaller cut and a smaller frame. Instead of using your big slot, you're able to use a guy I think that can create more separation, less frame to you to work with, but better separation. So glad that he is on the practice squad. And David Sills, I think he looked really, really good. Number 87 shined throughout camp. So glad that he's back. Again, high five to Tim. let me know about Donald Parham, who I think will be on the roster fairly soon. Again, 6'7" tight ends when you are 10 yards and in as a quarterback, that's awesome. He's 6'7". That means he has probably like a 3.5 foot arm stretch. So you're able to put the ball, damn near 10 feet up in the air and feel really good that he's going to be a guy that's going to, not only is he going to be the one going up for it, but he's going to be the one coming down with it. Let's see. Michael Burton again coming back. Nice job. Fullback. There's probably not a big market out there for Burton. So not shocked that he's back, but glad that he is. Will Sherman, guard tackle prospect from CU. It's depth. It's really good. Maybe he's doing more with within the whiteboard than we see, but not someone that moves the needle for me. Nick Gargiulo, 7th round pick at center. Sweet mustache, super smart. I think that's a really nice. We'll see how he develops at a position that they don't have an answer for yet at the center position. So like that again, Jordan Miller I think is a promising player. Matt Henningsen is definitely a contributor and has bottom 6 defensive lineman rotation upside for sure. DeAndre Tillman we talked about. Reese Taylor has been a really good find in camp, as has Quentin Newsome. So glad that those guys are back in the defensive backfield. Tanner McAllister looked pretty strong. And Calvin Throckmorton, who I think should have made the roster. If you're going on who gives us the best 53, have no doubt there was probably, hey, we're going to waive you if you don't get picked up, bring you back to the practice squad. And then after the league year continues, at some point we'll probably bring you back on. So that's who we got. That's who Sharon for. Had some really good questions or really good comments in here. So one, Alex, thanks again for your comments. Tim, appreciate you. Jair asked or brought up, hey, I think we should sign Stephon Gilmore over Levi Wallace. Yes. Yep. All the money wasn't the same, though. And so I think for a team that's probably a little bit strapped for cash and knowing that they're playing for next year, really, they needed to find out if Riley Moss or Damari Mathis, who is going to start the season on short-term IR, is a player for you. And I think it's a good opportunity for this team to find out. So for the immediacy, I really would have liked a guy like that for the Broncos, but understanding where they're at in the process, does it make sense? So so that being said, I think Stephon Gilmore is a guy that they could have utilized or kept, but they didn't. So love this question. Jay, again, is there any good inside linebackers that we should bring up? I think that is a really fine question. Let me pull up. So Spot Track does a pretty good job of providing like a good inside linebacker pool, maybe for us to look at. So we'll kind of see who's available, and I'll give you some names maybe that I like that I think could help this team, which again would be super dope. Most of the guys, to be honest, in the linebacker core that are out there are guys like Zach Cunningham, Shaq Leonard, if anyone remembers, a guy from yesteryear. Quan Alexander, those guys are plug and play. Gerard Davis, former first-round pick. Anthony Barr, former first-round pick. Blake Martinez has been a starter in this league. Jacob Phillips is a younger player, so I think that one might be one with upside that you think that you might be able to get. So those guys, I think, are guys that you could sign tomorrow, then come in and play, but not someone that you're really looking at for kind of long-term success or answering a question for depth. But I think that is the position. I think offensive line and inside linebacker are. I don't know, like, if you can go to a season and feel like you really have good dynamic play with Alex Singleton and Cody Barton. I don't know about you. If I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm not really like scheming up the sauce to get that. I think Alex Singleton is phenomenal. Love that guy. He does have limitations, especially in the run game, to be able to get downhill fast, take on big blockers. So you really need a good, stout inside linebacker next to him to be able to help out. And someone that is can be pretty good in coverage. Cody Barton is pretty good in coverage. But run defense, we'll kind of see. My best practice squad player that they kept, Darnell Parham, I think, for the immediacy. Let's do that. For the immediacy, I think he's the best player on the practice squad. So I really like that option for the Broncos in this season. So in the immediacy of, I like that one. Who is my favorite? If you add, I think right now, I think Reese Taylor is a guy that I really like. I think that he's shown a really good ability to hold up in pass coverage against ones, twos, threes. And he just he looks, I don't know, he's just around the ball all the time. I think you can't teach knack, right? You can't teach insight or feel for the game. And I think he has it. And so I'm pretty excited about that. Outside of that, I think it's all a bunch of names that we thought. I think I'm probably a little bit more bummed on not keeping Incoom on the practice squad, because I think that there's something there, but also understand why he's not. It's interesting that Jalen Virgil, Brandon Johnson, those guys weren't brought back again. Still fairly young players that have shown the ability to stay on an NFL roster. So the fact that those guys none of them were kept, I think goes to show the play for the long term. Troy Franklin did not earn a spot on this team by his play; he did by his draft status, and so I think that that's something to look at. And last thing, maybe before we go, probably, but Quan Alexander, I don't understand why he isn't. Guy has been good for a long time, and he continues to get kind of 1-year vet min deals. I would have really felt better about that than I was Cody Barton, for sure. So I'm not sure what the front office or Sean Payton saw in Cody Barton that they wouldn't have saw in Quan Alexander or even Zach Cunningham, who I've heard is not the nicest dude, and he might wear himself thin in locker rooms. But I also don't know that to be true, so I don't want to say yeah, that's why he's a turd. I don't know though. I mean, but that's what I have. That's information that I have got quite a bit. Shaq Leonard again, who I think was in the running for Defensive Player of the Year a few times when he was with the Colts. Still under the age of 30. I didn't watch much Philadelphia Eagle games last year, but they didn't retain him. I don't know what that says or what it doesn't say, but I think that would be a guy that I would be intrigued about if he's physically back. Bringing him in, and especially after the first where it's not guaranteed, I think I'd like that too, for sure. But we'll see. He was also a player that that Philadelphia picked up late last year, so there might be some guys available. Last on the Samaje Perine that got brought up about him being a surprise cut, and then now signing with the Chiefs. I don't think Samaje Perine is gonna be the gonna tilt anything in anyone's favor. But I think that's a good, smart, savvy move. I think Andy Reid knows what to get from his guys. Saw how Samaje really, that 2-minute drill, him running up, him releasing late up the middle, turning around on a hank route. Absolutely, I think you're welcome, Virginia, who also thinks Chiefs going to go undefeated. I don't know that they're not. As a Bronco fan, that would hurt my soul. And they do have the best quarterback on the planet. When you got the guy at that level with a fantastic coach and a really good defense, it's gonna be pretty hard to beat, I think, for sure. So next week we'll talk about, we're gonna forecast the season as we preview week 1. The NFL season is almost here, friends. It will get started a week from tomorrow, Thursday Night Football, and then we're all saved. So hopefully, like you saw in those videos out there, give your 2-week notice to your partner and say, hey, over the next 6 to 7 months, I will no longer be available, and or we'll check out when we chat. So hopefully you're as excited about it as I am. I really appreciate not only you listening, but if you're able to catch this live, I appreciate that. Let me know how I did. Shoot it in the comments or shoot me a DM at dr_nmanning. Haven't done a show solo before, but I wanted to be able to kind of talk while the info was hot, and the Broncos just gave us their official roster for the season that I think most of us have a very hopeful outlook on what the Denver Broncos could be this season. And so glad we get to talk about it a little bit today. Appreciate you all participating in chat. Even you, Virginia, appreciate your football love to come pop in and chat with us. Jair, Alex, Tim, thanks for the interactions and the questions. Appreciate everyone that just watched and hung out. And for that, I will let you go, and so you can go and enjoy your day. If you ever need a sports fix, let me know. I'll get you that prescription. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted.